Hello, I'm the principal data scientist at Booz Allen Hamilton, Kirk Borne, and welcome to the Data Lake Summit. I'm here today to talk about data leadership, innovation, and value creation from data and empowerment of employees with data culture. So today I'm going to address three fundamental questions around data: the what, the so what, and the now what, specifically in the context of the data lake and data integration for business innovation and value creation. I'd like to start with, what is our data purpose? We are data professionals entrusted with our organization's massive digital and data assets. And our mission is to discover insights, to innovate, and to produce value from data. But not only that, but to provide leadership and empower others in applications of data, including data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, and data fluent employees. So what is big data's biggest challenge? Oftentimes people are confronted with that first word, big data, and they think big volume. And it's not really the biggest challenge of big data. The real challenge is data complexity, or data variety, in other words, meaning the high number of types of data, sources of data, things we do with data, formats of data. All these different types of data are the biggest challenge. Sometimes people say, what is the biggest challenge? And I can give them two answers. First, it's the data integration challenge of all these different data types. And the second is creating value and insights and action from all that data. But it really all comes down to the same one challenge, which is you got a lot of complex data in an organization. So it has very little to do with volume because storage is manageable. Data management has come a long way. Data storage is way cheaper than it ever used to be. I remember my days at NASA when 1 gigabyte hard drive cost me $30,000. Now I can get tens of gigabytes for free on many different cloud service providers as an individual user. So storage is no longer our challenge. It's bringing together all those diverse distributed data sources that organizations have across many different departments: sales data, finance data, customer call center data, marketing data, many different sources of data which rarely are integrated. And it reminds me of this cartoon of the blindfolded men feeling the elephant. You've probably seen this before. And the way it goes is that this complex thing is not very well understood when you only recognize or feel or sense one component of this complex system. It's not until the blindfolds come off that you really understand the complexity and the capabilities of this complex system. And businesses are just like this. Until we bring all those data sources together, remove the blindfolds, and seeing what it is that all these different sources that they tell us about what's going on in our market, in our industry, in our own organizations, it's not till then that we actually get the actionable insights, the discoveries that move us forward. So data silos really inhibit everything. Bringing all that stuff together in a way that empowers people to make insights, make decisions, to innovate, that's what a data lake can do for you. So what we're going to do is move from just having a lot of information to having insights, more insights, a lot of insights. Because it's the insights from all this data that really makes the difference. It's not just having the bytes. It's not just having the information. It's about having the insights. So today's data leaders have the power with a cloud-based data lake to integrate all these multiple diverse data sources and to really change that story. No longer are we thinking about the blindfolded men not being able to see the full complexity of the system, all the things it's capable of. Same way, not being able to see the full complexity of our business and our organization and all the things it's capable of. We can now bring that together to enable access and exploration and exploitation of rich, diverse data sets across all parts of the organization, empowering all individuals in the organization. But not only that, but it leads to this cultural transformation, a culture of data literacy, a culture of data democratization, and a culture of experimentation with data, which leads to this insights discovery and innovation, new products, new services, new processes, and the bottom line, business value creation. That's what we're after. So that's what. So what's the so what? I mean, why should we care? Well, I remember giving a talk many years ago. I was invited to make a presentation to one of the major clients of my company. And I was asked to give a presentation on the data lake. And this was, 5 or 6 years ago. And about that time, my position on the data lake was it was just yet another marketing hype word. We had floods of data, seas of data, oceans of data, fire hoses of data. And I said to myself, we don't need another water metaphor. We got oceans of data. Why do we need a data lake? And then I found this article by Michael Stonebreaker, Turing Award winner, who said that data lakes are marketing BS. Well, he didn't actually say BS. He spelled out the word. And so I decided to use this as my opening line in the presentation to this very major client of ours. But when I arrived on the scene, it turned out that our major client was far more major than I thought. Some of the top brass, very top brass of this particular organization. And I was a little embarrassed to start my presentation with this opening line. But I followed that very strongly with the same line I have here. The focus here is on the scientific rationale for the data lake, not about the marketing hype, but by the tremendous value that it really brings. So the more we move beyond hype, the more value we're going to get out of this. And that's pretty good because we're dealing with very large quantities of unstructured data that traditional databases cannot handle. And this is really the value of the data lake. You can bring together many different types of data, not just database structured data. There's a lot of unstructured data. And there's charts that show growth in unstructured data and growth of data, and they really are pretty strongly exponential. In fact, some of these projections in terms of the number of exabytes or zettabytes or yottabytes we're going to be creating in the years to come, even those projections are now under, I should say the curves are under the actual amount of data that we have in the world today. So that is really a true challenge. And so we need to have more the scientific approach of discovery from data than worrying about the storage of the data and what else. And one of the problems that's really fundamental is this 20-80 rule. Well, I'm sure you've heard of the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the value of anything is derived in the first 20% of the effort. And we all live by the 80-20 rule because the perfect is the enemy of the good enough and things like that. So we focus on getting that first 80% of value, knowing that it would take 5 times more effort to get the last bit, and that's fine. But what is the 20-80 rule? The 20-80 rule says you're only getting 20% of the value from 80% of the effort. That is like really a terrible flip of that equation. And so unstructured data is now about 80% and has been for a long time about 80% of all data. And if you're not getting the value from that 80%, you're only getting 20% of the value. It's really a 20-100 rule, right? You're getting 20% of the value of your data from 100% of your investment. Well, let's just turn that back around and say, well, how can we get that turned the other way? And that's what the data lake can do for you. You can bring together these multiple, diverse, unstructured data sets from all across the organization to finally flip that equation and bring the maximum value for the best amount of investment. So when I say insights discovery, people say, okay, what do you mean by that? And I say, well, it's about machine learning. And then sometimes people say, oh dear, I don't want to get into machine learning. That's mathematics, it's coding, it's concepts, that not all of my clients or stakeholders can understand. And I say, it's not about those things. It's about what we naturally do as humans, and we try to replicate with our algorithms, which is we do pattern discovery, we do pattern detection, and we do pattern recognition. So this is what humans are very good at. And what kind of patterns am I talking about? Well, we have 4 categories here on this slide. Class discovery, finding the groups, the segments and subsegments in a population, and not only finding them, but finding how they separate from one another. So just like in that little graphic there, you might see data clouds 1, 2, and 3. And so there's 3 clusters there. And as we add more data, we start seeing more clusters. So class discovery, finding the clusters, finding the classes, even the subclasses, and not just finding them, but how are they different from one another. Another type of pattern is a correlation. Given X, find Y, because X correlates with Y. Oftentimes, we just call that predictive power discovery, because given the X, you can find the Y. So finding correlations and trends and patterns in data is very powerful for business, because you can use these trends to predict customer sales, predict pricing, predict risk, predict all kinds of things. But not only can you do predictive power discovery, you can do prescriptive. And what's that? Well, that's just basically optimization. Once you have enough data sources, and believe me, it's more than 2 data sources I'm talking about here, not just X and Y, it's multiple dimensions. And of course, this little plot just has 3 dimensions. There's P1, P2, and P3. But once we have these multiple dimensions and we see a correlation, maybe that correlation will change in some direction or another. We don't really know why, we just know there's a correlation. Because we learned in statistics class, right, that correlation does not mean causation. But when you have those extra dimensions, you can see there's causal factors. There's actually things that are causing the correlation and pattern that you saw in those other dimensions. And once you find those causal factors, then you can implement a system that simulates or induces a correlation to move in a positive or a negative direction, depending upon what you want to do. You want to optimize sales, optimize revenue, optimize customer satisfaction. That means go up. You may want to reduce risk, reduce losses, reduce customer attrition, reduce employee attrition. So we always want to move a correlation one way or another to optimize business success, optimize business outcomes. And we find that out through these additional dimensions. And so correlation discovery in multiple dimensions gives us both predictive and prescriptive power discovery. The third type of pattern is an outlier. Humans are really good at finding outliers, things that are different. I just like to call that surprise discovery, because sometimes the surprise is right in the middle of the data set. Maybe there shouldn't be anything there. Maybe there should be no customer who has these particular characteristics because it's just never seen before. A point right in the middle of the data set, but no statistics book would ever call that an outlier. That's an inlier, but it's a very surprising place for that thing to happen. And so data discovery around surprise discovery means looking through the data sets and finding the things that are unusual, anomalous, surprising, unexpected. And that's how empowering people in your organization really comes into play. Because it's really a culture of data and data democratization and data empowerment and even data fluency in organizations basically comes down to one simple phrase: empower people that if they see something in the data, they say something. If you see something, say something. And that's a powerful legacy you can leave with your people to empower them not only to help the business, but help themselves. And the last type of pattern has its own little chart there down at the bottom left. And that fourth one is association discovery or link discovery. That is finding the connections across the network, across the graph of knowledge, the product graph, the customer graph, all these different ways that we connect across a network through 1, 2, 3, or even 6 degrees of separation. Finding those links that aren't connected, finding the dots that aren't connected, that can give you tremendous insight in how an organization or a process or a product is operating. So given these 4 characteristics of insights discovery, we can apply those in different ways. And I call those analytics outcomes. For example, if you apply that pattern discovery to just historical data, descriptive analytics, we call that, like how many things did we sell in the past business quarter? How many customers did we gain in the last business quarter? That's descriptive analytics. That's fine. We've done reporting for years, but we want to move beyond that. So we're going into diagnostic analytics where we're doing real time. So some of those diverse data sources in your organization might be streams of data coming from Internet of Things sensors, or streams of data coming from web logs or other types of machine logs or any kind of log analytics in your organization. Diagnostic analytics, not just waiting for 6 months, then looking at the data, but trying to do it in real time to see what's happening right now. But real power comes when you can sort of see the future, right? When you can see what's coming, that's real power. So predictive analytics is one of the most powerful tools of analytics in a business tool belt. But it doesn't stop there, because we talked about prescriptive analytics. That is not only just predicting the future, but optimizing the future, changing the future, creating a better future. That's prescriptive analytics. So these are different types of outcomes that come from insights discovery in data. But there's a number 5 here, and that's cognitive analytics. And cognitive analytics is a little bit different. It's really about the 360 view. It's taking in all the data, all the perspectives from a system, from a customer, from an employee, or from a process, and knowing what to do based upon that full cognitive view. And that comes from integrating those multiple diverse data sources. And it's at that point that you really do have a powerful data fluency in your organization, when people start asking the questions that they should ask. Finding the question in the data is how I like to describe it. Instead of it being like descriptive analytics, where you answer questions that have been given to you, In cognitive analytics, you find the question you should be asking. Like, why is this trend here? Why is this customer purchase pattern changing? Why is the slope of this correlation changing? That is, if we used to do these particular marketing campaigns and we had a certain type of response and now it's different. Why is this outlier here? Why is this inlier here? These types of questioning can happen from any person in the organization, not just your data scientist. And that's how we need that empowerment of people across the organization. So given these different types of outcomes from analytics and the different types of insights discovery, I put together this little scorecard to measure your analytics mastery as an organization. And I call it the stellar analytics because if you look at the first letter of the words in this chart, they spell out the word stellar. Now, the numbers are not quite in order. You'll see the numbers go through 1, 2, 3, 4, then 7, 6, 5. That's intentional. That's not a PowerPoint mistake because I want to talk about them in the order of the numbers, even though in the order I've shown you, they spell out the word stellar, which I think is kind of cute. A strong organization with analytics mastery is doing streaming analytics. That is, it's not just looking at static data, but it's looking at the data that's coming in now to detect persons of interest and behaviors of interest, whether those behaviors are marketing customers on your website and your e-commerce store, for example, or maybe behaviors in the cyber behavior of people on your network to identify cyber security flaws or cyber hackers, for example. So detecting patterns of interest or behaviors of interest is really critical with streaming data. So that's number one. Number two, team analytics, the power of empowering an organization through its teams of people with multiple diverse talents, perspectives, and so on. So a culture of experimentation on teams that share data and collaborate, reuse data, democratize the uses of data is very powerful. And then number 3, 4, and 5 is a progression. There's edge analytics, where you find things that are happening at the same moment in time. Location analytics, finding things that are co-occurring together in some space. So not just looking at what customers are buying now, but is there something special about the geographic location where this kind of thing is happening? So locality in time and locality in space. And number 5 takes that more generally, which is locality in entity space. That is, look at all the features in your multiple diverse data sets. And are there other things like this, other products like this, other processes like this, other behaviors like this? So not just time and space in the normal sense, but in data space. Just after all, time and regular space are just other dimensions in your data. So you have all these dimensions, explore them all, not just time and normal space. So those are 3, 4, and 5. And then we have agile analytics, where we have this culture of experimentation, where we seek out that minimal viable product, or sometimes people call it the minimal lovable product. That minimal thing you can do to deliver that first value from your data, the first value that you can create from your analytics, then encourages and inspires your organization to do more. So start small, fail fast, learn fast, start small, but think big. And number 7 is the capstone. I call it the learning business system. So learning business system analytics is derived from a concept that exists in healthcare, the learning health system. And it's not about learning or training. No, it's about the system itself, continuous monitoring and continuous improvement by collecting data. I like to call that observability. So observability is a strategy where you monitor and observe things, how your business, your processes are going, how your customer interactions are going, how customer sentiment is, and so forth. And you feed back into the organization that knowledge through the analytics, that is the patterns that you discover in the data, to improve the organization. That's a learning business system. It's a knowledge-driven learning continuous improvement system. And that's the real capstone in analytics. So this is your analytics scorecard, and analytics mastery is achieved as you master more and more of these elements. So we've talked about the what and the so what. So now what? What do you do now? Well, I say start reaping the benefits of the data lake. First of all, its relevance because it focuses on the biggest challenge of data, and that is high variety, not the volume. Because again, like I said before, the storage is not the issue, it's the data integration that's the issue. The second benefit is agility. That is, you can add new data at any time. Not only that, you can start querying against multiple sources of data without 16-way joins. Is sort of the traditional database problem, right? When you have multiple diverse data sources, multiple diverse tables in the database, you'd have these infinitely long ways of joining data. But that's no longer true. You can now do ad hoc queries on demand. You don't need a data model. And we don't need a schema in advance before we can start asking questions. You can start asking new questions on demand. And that leads us to the third point here, disruptive. It's a real game changer. What I call day zero analytics. When you acquire a new data set, historically, you'd have to remodel, reconfigure, redesign the enterprise data model. And sometimes that would take weeks or even months before the new data could be deployed and people could start using it in the business. Now with the data lake, you can basically incorporate a new data set, and as soon as you're able to do all the basic engineering and foundational things to get it in place, you can essentially start querying it and doing analytics on it day zero. This really is a game changer. A real milestone in data lake, especially data lake on the cloud, is the performance is just unbelievable for the cost. And I believe this is really the moment that we're seeing that realization of cost performance, price performance, and actually analytics performance really coming together to bring that true benefit of insights discovery and business value creation, not only in one part of the business, but across the business. And this reminds me of one of the things that people used to say about data. They would say data is the new oil. I hate that statement, data is the new oil, because oil is not a reusable product. It's not a reusable resource. Once you've used it, it's one and done. Data is not like that. You can reuse the same data set over and over and over again for many different applications and many different departments and still create value, create something from it over and over again. And it's across the business. So sharing data across the business, insights, discovery, and communications is enabled when you can share data, share these different data sources, which are not like resident in a database only in one single department. So at the end of the day, it's all about innovative creation of value from data. I like to say that in a couple of ways. First, it's insights at the speed of questions. So at the speed you can ask questions, you can start get answers to those questions. But it's also business at the speed of data. This is another thing which I've thought of in recent years. I've heard a lot of people talk about we need data at the speed of business and analytics at the speed of business. And that might have been true a few years ago, but now data is coming at us so fast, we can't keep up with it. So we really need business at the speed of data. And this is what the data lake brings to us. It brings us that business value creation and insights discovery at the speed of data. And that's not just, again, one organization, but across all teams and business units. So my takeaways today is the importance in data leadership, innovation, value creation, and empowerment are these three. First, with the data lake, business value maximization from data is within every organization's reach. 2, use the Stellar Analytics Scorecard to assess and grow your own organization's analytics mastery. 3, assess and evolve your organization's data maturity. And that includes data integration, data literacy and fluency, and data democratization. That is data for all, or as I like to say, if you see something in the data, say something. Empower all employees to do that. Develop this culture of experimentation, testing the data to find the insights that mean something, that deliver innovation and business value. Assess and evolve your organization's data maturity. Go there, because data is everywhere and it's part of everything. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. Apply analytics, data science to discover new knowledge. Connect those dots. Find the information, the insight in the information, I should say. Find the insight and knowledge in your data by connecting those dots. And ultimately, create and do something. So thank you very much. This has been great. I really appreciate your time today. If you can find more about me on Twitter and then my blog site, rocketdatascience.org. And hopefully you are all tweeting about the Data Lake Summit today. So thank you very much.